Oh,
Okay, we got it. So good to see you. After a couple of week break, we're about to begin our study again. At the beginning of an 8-week session, we'll also do the foundation of good qualities, Yondan Shurgurma. So we're going to begin with some prayers and meditation, and then that glance meditation. So Mary Ellen, would you like to put up the beginning prayers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good to see you, David. Okay. Sangye chodang soki chognam la jangchu badu dagni kepsu chi dagi chunin gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupasho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened through the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye chodang soki chognam la jangchu badu dagni kapsu chi dagi chunin gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupasho. By offering this ground, this mandala, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy the Buddha, a pure realm. And then request to our primordial guru, the Dharmakaya, O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the pure clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niryatayami. And I think at this point, let's do that glance meditation on the Lanrim that's called the Foundation of Good Qualities, and then we'll do our meditation motivation afterwards. Sheila's here also. Can you get it up there, Mary Ellen? Okay. Oh, having some problems.
I have it from someplace else, so I can put it up if you want. Oh, she has it.
Oh, I got it. Okay. So whoever is leading, it's good to have it ready and at the right place and so forth. So this is the prayer that was written by Lama Tsong Khapa and in Reading, which is where the Kadampa Geshis lived, north of Lhasa. I had the great fortune of visiting there and seeing where he had composed this. So we're going to begin. The foundation of all good qualities is the correct following of the kind and perfect Guru, who is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely on the Guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is extremely difficult to find again, and greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind, taking its essence day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble. Remember how quickly they perish and how death comes after death, how death comes And after death, just like the shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow us. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me to always be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings and in accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized the shortcomings of samsaric perfections, that there is no satisfaction in enjoying them, that they are the door to all suffering, and that they cannot be trusted, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought, with great remembrance, great recollection, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows, the root of the teaching, my essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all other mother transmigratory beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme bodhicitta, which takes the responsibility of freeing transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, just wishing bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, I cannot achieve enlightenment. By my seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vows of the bodhisattvas, the sons of the victorious ones, with fervent effort. By having pacified distractions to wrong objects, and by correctly analyze the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of shamatha and vipassana, calm abiding and special insight. When I have become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and samayas, that means commitments, purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then, when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the generation stage and the completion stage, which are the essence of the tantric sets, and am enjoying the yoga of 4 sessions with effort, without being distracted by non-meditation objects, please bless me to accomplish these according to the teachings of the holy beings, to accomplish the 2 stages, the generation and completion stage. Thus, may the virtuous friends who reveal the holy path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it, my fellow practitioners, have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay, thank you. So we're going to do a short meditation. Try to put that into practice, to have a especially virtuous motivation for participating in the class today. So sit comfortably with your legs crossed if you can. Doris, you don't cross your legs. Sit comfortably, relax your body, relax your mind. Watch your breathing, recognize it. Once you have recognized it, keep it in as the object of your mindfulness. to the exclusion of all other thoughts. Remembering that you don't have to think about anything else. Let go of extraneous thoughts, worries, plans, memories. Let go of part of your awareness apprehending the presence of your body, seeming loomingly there. Even let go of your sense of the ego. With wisdom, recognize when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. And don't leave the state of mindfulness at the endpoints when it's easy when the breath is slowing, changing from in to out and out to in. It's easy for the mind to start entering into other thoughts. Then letting go of that object of mindfulness, place your mindfulness on the clear light nature of your mind, conventional clear light nature of your mind, your mental consciousness. Difficult to find. You have to find it first through some analysis, recognizing the events in your mind, images, thoughts, emotions, are like clouds in an otherwise pristine spaciousness of your mind. Letting go of those thoughts, let them absorb back into the consciousness. Start to recognize and hold in mindfulness this clear light nature, which is the mere absence of any obstruction to the arisal or reabsorption of events into the mental consciousness. Let go of attention to your eye consciousness, your body consciousness. recognize this is our developmental Buddha nature, the conventional clear light nature of the mind is this conventional Buddha nature, our developmental Buddha nature, the fact that we can get rid of all faults and we can install within our mind, reformat our hard drive, so to speak, with the good, wholesome thoughts of the Mahayana. We have this all the time because at this moment, we have an auspicious moment of a life of leisure and endowment that allows us to recognize this. So many people in the world not recognizing that they have a life of leisure and endowment, that they can practice the Dharma. And we, having this particular set of circumstances that have been thrown because of our previous accumulation of merit, past lives, prayers, charity, morality, we have the chance of recognizing this opportunity for us to develop the spiritual path, our conventional Buddha nature, our developmental Buddha nature. Recognizing that this life is meaningful, as in the Yondan Shigyurma, the prayer that we recited at the beginning, that we can achieve liberation, enlightenment with this life, choosing between the two to aim for enlightenment out of compassion for living beings, who, if we were to seek our individual liberation, would be very selfish, the Buddha taught. Those with an intelligence, as we will all eventually become enlightened, even if we become arhats first, but remain in that state for a long period of time, better to go immediately toward the destination of an enlightenment, not seeking our own individual liberation. All living beings who have been our mother numberless times and depthlessly kind. Those people that we find kind now, maybe our mothers, maybe other people, all living beings have been as kind numberless times since beginningless time. They are all exactly equal in wanting to be free of suffering, wanting to be happy. Finding common ground with them, finding empathy for them, just as we want to be free of suffering and to have all happiness. Recognizing that the way that we can lead them out of suffering into happiness depends on our having the perfect methods. Thinking, I must achieve enlightenment in order to effortlessly, spontaneously, and without error lead sentient beings out of suffering into stable, everlasting happiness. I think I'm going to participate in the class this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you are, with that intention to accumulate the collections of merit and wisdom to achieve the state of omniscience. I need to know how to accumulate merit, how to prevent destroying my merit through anger. I need to know the methods to accumulate wisdom through realizing emptiness. So I'm going to study, listen, contemplate, and meditate on the subject matter. The Gompa Rapsel, composed by Lama Khapa, is a commentary to the Madhyamaka Vatara by Chandrakirti. I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate in order to become a Buddha, in order to benefit all sentient beings. Try to make that strong motivation. Bring your attention back to the present. Good to see you all again. Anyone have any questions from our previous classes, or any other question that's been vexing you before we begin? KT, how are you doing? You okay?
Hi, good. Thank you, Venerable George. May I ask a short question?
Yes.
Hopefully
Yeah.
simple. I know you've talked about this in earlier videos, which I've been working my way through since I missed the first ones live. And the difference between the wisdom prajna and then the deeper gnosis wisdom of jhana, if I'm saying that correctly. And I'm just trying to differentiate those two wisdoms.
Right. We mentioned several times, in general, the word jnana is, in Tibetan we say yeshe, like Lama Yeshe, the founder, who is Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teacher, my teacher. The difference between sherab and yeshe, or prajna and jnana, is yeshe is used in various ways. First of all, generally it's in the Prajnaparamita sutras, in the teachings. It refers to any path consciousness which is leading you toward enlightenment. But in general, when we talk about of the 10 perfections, the 6th perfection is the perfection of sherab, or prajna. We say the prajna paramita. You've heard that before, right? KTs. The 10th perfection, just on the 10th bhumi, is the perfection of jnana. So in that context, yeshe or jnana has a particular meaning. It's a wisdom that knows emptiness, of course, but it is particularly able to recognize the conventional nature of phenomena. Generally, we might think, oh, conventional phenomena are easier to realize than emptiness. I see dogs, I see cats, I see trees in my car, my mug of coffee. Those are all conventional phenomena, but we don't recognize them as conventional phenomena. We actually misapprehend them now as being inherently existent. In order to understand how phenomena are actually, how they actually exist, how conventional phenomena actually exist as mere imputations, we have to have realized emptiness, have some insight into emptiness. And it's on the 10th bhumi where that perfection of jnana takes place, that has, that understands emptiness, of course, but is particularly skilled in understanding how phenomena are mere imputations. So that's a little bit, we've talked about that several times. People have had that same question several times. So sometimes yeshe is translated by various translators in different ways. They say as exalted wisdom, as opposed to wisdom. Prajna might be wisdom, and yeshe or jnana as exalted wisdom, or as Geshe Zopa liked to translate, gnosis. And Rocio may remember from Deer Park when Geshe would say that sometimes, he'd say, I don't mean noses, gnosis. It was like to joke about that. So you can kind of get an idea there. Okay, anyone else have a question? Okay, good. So just as we're going to begin with the section called the qualities of the ground, comma, the attributes, which is on in Jimpa's text, page 130, the written text, in Hopkins, page 205. And just to lead a little bit of follow through here, we're on the third ground called the luminous, and we've just had a couple of the stanzas. The stanza of 3:1 at the beginning of the chapter said, because the fire burning off the fuels of all phenomena produces light here, copper-colored light. This third ground is called the luminous. Here the child of the Tathagata perceives a copper-colored glow like that of sunrise. That was one verse. Second verse, the third ground is the luminous, for the pacifying light of gnosis dawns. Absorptions and clairvoyances have arisen. Oh no, this is a quotation from the Precious Garland. And attachment and aversion have utterly ceased. That means it doesn't mean all attachment and aversion. And as fruitional effect of these attainments, the Bodhisattva will engage especially in forbearance and diligence. This is the celestial being. This great celestial being is most learned. He or she has undone the attachment to the desire realm. So now that's where we just gotten up to this point. Oh no, that was May 6th. So after that, there was the verse 3:2, were a disturbed person to slice flesh from the bones of the body of a bodhisattva, though he be innocent. That means, or they were to do that unjustly, bodhisattva not having done anything wrong to that person, cutting it off ounce by ounce over a prolonged period. This will serve to increase the patience, the forbearance toward the torturer by that bodhisattva. And then verse 3, for a bodhisattva who sees selflessness, who cuts what, at what point in time and in what manner. The bodhisattva sees all phenomena as images, as reflections in a mirror. By seeing thus too, he will have forbearance. So the also or to means that having compassion for them, and also the torturer, he'll have patience, and also by realizing the emptiness, he will have patience, he or she. And then the verse 4, if you respond with vengeance when someone harms you, does your bitterness reverse what was already done? Resentment serves no purpose here in this life, and it brings more conflicts in the world beyond, in future lives. So that's in talking about the inappropriateness of anger due to it being pointless. So this brings up the famous quotation in Shantideva: if there's something that you can do about a situation, there's no need to be angry. Just do it. If there's nothing you can do about the situation, there's no need, there's no sense, there's no meaning. It's pointless to get angry. And then verse 5, which Higgs suggested maybe was not getting the translation exactly right. He who speaks of exhausting the fruits of non-virtuous actions performed in the past. how can he bear to plant the seeds of future pain by inflicting harm on others who are angry at them? This is the section. It's contradictory to loathe future suffering, not to want future suffering, but to retaliate with harm. So I mentioned at that point the translation of Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche I thought might be better. The result of earlier non-virtuous action is regarded as having been called exhaustion or purification by the Buddha, sort of implied that statement. The Buddha has taught us that, when you experience suffering, that's the exhaustion of your past negative actions, yet you harm others. The suffering from that anger is what you now proceed to sow. So that's where we had gotten up to. Now, this is the next section is it is inappropriate to become angry because it destroys virtues accumulated in the past over a long period. And I'd given the wrong pages. This is Jimpa 133 and Hopkins 208. Are we on the same wavelength now? Okay. So this has two parts. How it's inappropriate to get angry because it destroys virtues, merit, accumulated long periods of time in the past. So we have in our mind stream some virtuous karmas that we've created. Some of them we may have already destroyed due to anger, but we do have some. So this has two parts: the points related to the actual context and the points that emerge as side considerations. Okay, so the points related to the actual context. Not only is intolerance, we could say anger, a cause of casting unwelcome fruitional effects into the future. What does that mean? Ida, what does that mean? Intolerance or anger is a cause of casting unwelcome fruitional effects into the future. Sounds complicated. Is that complicated? Ida?
I guess impatience is a cause of projecting not pleasant things or harmful things in the future.
Yeah. So impatience, or you could say anger, let's say being impatient, creates negative karma, which is itself the cause of, unpleasant. When you create negative karma, the sort of the definition of that which is negative is that which causes suffering, creates the cause of suffering. So by definition, impatience or intolerance is the creates or casts, like when you're casting seeds, right? Casting unwelcome fruitional effects into the future. So generally that would be talking about unwelcome lifetimes in the future, being born, when you talk about fruitional effects in general, but here it may be just talking about even the effects that are similar to the cause. If you're impatient, people will be impatient with you in the future, and you will have the habitual tendency to be impatient in the future. It will also cause the merits collected over a long period of time to diminish. So this is kind of like, this is what when we talk about the defects of anger or impatience or intolerance, it's kind of a double whammy. Other kinds of negative actions create the cause for future suffering, but anger or intolerance or impatience also destroys merits that you've created in the past. If you have attachment, you create negative karma for the future, but that attachment doesn't necessarily destroy virtue that you've already created. If you have jealousy, maybe jealousy may have a component of anger in it. If you have pride, if you have other kinds of afflictions, they don't necessarily destroy virtues that you've created, but anger does have that fault. So this is presented in the following stanza 6. Indeed, anger felt toward the conqueror's children, toward bodhisattvas. Remember the epithet conqueror's children. That destroys in an instant the virtue gathered by generosity and morality over 100 eons. Thus, there is no evil similar to impatience or intolerance, or you could say nothing similar to anger. That's kind of the meaning here. Hopkins translates, one moment of hating a conqueror's child destroys the virtues arising from giving and ethics accumulated for 100 eons. So you may have been trying to practice generosity and ethics for a few years, a few decades now, but maybe we have created that in the past. One moment of anger toward a bodhisattva, who's a very sensitive object, because a bodhisattva is intent on bringing happiness to ourselves and all living beings. So their kindness makes them a heavy object. So for instance, getting angry at your mother and father also destroys a merit, but maybe not to the same extent as a bodhisattva. Why particularly mother and father? Do you know, Diana? Why are mother and father particularly heavy objects of karma?
I don't know specifically, but I mean, they've cared for you throughout this life, so there's somehow stronger karma there.
Yeah, they are the cause of us having a human body. Oh, let's say if you're adopted, maybe a little bit different, but they have been kind to you in other ways, teaching you, grooming you, and so forth. So they are amongst the heavy objects of karma, but bodhisattvas are even more heavy objects of karma. So creating anger toward them creates even greater negative karma. It can destroy merits that created over 100 eons. So the commentary says, indeed, for whatever reason, either because of not ascertaining the object to be a bodhisattva, maybe out of ignorance, you didn't realize someone was a bodhisattva, you got angry with them or impatient with them, or you've ascertained that they were a bodhisattva, like the Dalai Lama or something like this, but out of strong habituation to the afflictions, because you have no antidotes to them. You've become used to getting angry. You don't see any defects, and so you just let it go. So either you didn't realize they were a bodhisattva, or you did realize they were a bodhisattva, but because of your habituation to the afflictions, if a bodhisattva experiences anger felt even for an instant toward the conqueror's children who have generated the awakening mind, by definition, conqueror's children or bodhisattvas are, by definition, they have generated the mind of awakening. They have generated bodhicitta based on exaggerated projection of real or unreal faults. This alone destroys a collection of merit gathered over 100 eons. So why in the beginning of that sentence, right after one of the dashes there, it says, if a bodhisattva experiences anger felt even for an instant, why does it have to be a bodhisattva? David, do you have any idea? Why is it particularly mentioning a bodhisattva? You don't know? Okay. Maybe because a bodhisattva on the path of accumulation or path of preparation has accumulated merit through generosity and ethics, maybe for some eons. Usually, how long does it take, Paul, how long does it take on the path of a bodhisattva, on the bodhisattva path, for the path of accumulation and preparation? Do you know?
Is that 3 countless eons?
Well, it takes 3 countless eons to become enlightened.
Yeah.
So I think they say
Like,
for the path of path of accumulation and the path of preparation, maybe a countless great eon, one, and then path of seeing to the seventh bhumi, another countless great eon, and then the 3 pure bhumis, 8th, 9th, and 10th, another countless great eon. So bodhisattva, there's probably talking mainly at this point when it says if a bodhisattva were to experience anger just for an instant, that's someone on the path of accumulation or path of preparation, they have been accumulating merit and wisdom for the intention of achieving enlightenment for a countless great eon, perhaps, or some portion of that, depending on where they are in that text. So that's a big loss, right? 100 eons of that merit is destroyed by one instant of anger toward the bodhisattva. John, what are you thinking?
Thank you. My question was related to exactly this because, and I'm just curious if I'm off the mark here. The last couple of verses have been referring to anger without qualifying what the object of the anger is, just somebody that you're, and somebody else that you're angry at. And then also that this translation or definition of patience or forbearance has a lot to do with emptiness because of the ability to perceive that's the mikpa, korsum mimikpa, the non-objectifying of the 3 realms of
3 spheres, right?
The 3 spheres. So that being my understanding that when the verse then says one moment of being angry toward a bodhisattva in particular, it makes me wonder if this is a subtle bait and switch, because we just don't know who is a bodhisattva. So therefore it's just saying one moment of being angry at anybody.
Yeah, essentially. So there's a very famous stanza. I think one of you who studied also, you may know, I can't remember whether it was Dharmakirti or Dignaga said, you had to be very careful who you are critical of, because unless you have clairvoyance, you don't know whether someone is a bodhisattva or not. So you can easily get angry at someone thinking they're just, not a bodhisattva, or not even considering that it's worrisome to get angry at a bodhisattva.
Joe Schmo.
Come again?
That they're Joe Schmo.
That they're Joe Schmo, right? In New York speak. Okay. So I think it was Dharmakirti said, it's like walking along the path and being oblivious of the fact that there's a fire pit. Do you know what a fire pit is? Sort of like Indian, some kind of trap that has at the bottom there are burning coals, and it has been covered with some thin twigs, and then on top of that some straw, so it just looks like perfect ground, right? So you walk along and you step on that and you fall into the pit and you get burned to death or injured in some way. Or maybe like in the Rambo movies, maybe there are swords or something down there. So you don't know. It's that like the cover, the fire pit is covered with twigs to make some matrix, and then the grass on top of that. So it just looks like ground. So if you look at ordinary people, if you look at other people, you don't know whether they're a bodhisattva unless you have clairvoyance, right? Or unless you have studied and you have recognized their qualities and so forth. So one has to be very, very careful. So here it's talking about particularly the disadvantages of bodhisattvas getting angry at other bodhisattvas, or even we ordinary beings getting angry with other bodhisattvas. So it's talking about, for us, we have an accumulated probably hundreds of eons of merit, but the bodhisattvas on the path of accumulation and path of preparation may have very well done so. Okay, so Karen, you have a question.
I do. Thank you,
Good.
Venerable George. So I understand that anger, the amount of negative karma we're creating is huge, but if we dedicated the merit already, is that still destroyed even if we dedicated it? Or is it just undedicated merit that's destroyed?
So, good question. So it will come up in detail a little further on in the chapter, but here, just to give a preview, generally when we talk about dedicating merit, we're talking about, due to these merits, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That kind of dedication protects merit from being used up in, let's say, some trivial event in the future, being famous or wealthy or beautiful or something like that. It's said to perpetuate the karma. If the karma is not destroyed, if the karma is still there, that karma will be like a drop added to the ocean, a drop of water added to the ocean. It won't be extinguished until the ocean is dried up. In other words, it will still give karmic results, that karma that we've dedicated, until we reach that goal that we've dedicated to. But it doesn't guarantee that karma can't be destroyed by anger. That's a misapprehension. And Lama Tsongkhapa points this out. What you need to do to prevent the karmic seeds from being destroyed by anger is not just the conventional dedication, which we should do and which we generally do, but you have to dedicate the merits within the emptiness of the three spheres. So, for instance, we've done that before in our other classes also sometimes, haven't always gone into that detail. I, the agent of creating this karma, do not exist inherently. The goal dedicated to, let's say, enlightenment or bodhicitta or realization of, let's say bodhicitta or something like that, they do not exist inherently. And the act of dedication is just a name. It doesn't exist inherently. It's just a name attributed to the moments of wishing this karma ripen in that way. So all of it is empty of inherent existence. It's in that way that the karma that we dedicate will be protected from being destroyed by anger. But if you don't dedicate it within the emptiness of the three spheres, it's still susceptible to destruction by anger. If it's not destroyed by anger or by wrong view or a couple of other very heavy abandoning the Dharma and so forth, those are some of the things that can cause negative karma to be destroyed. If it's not destroyed by anger, that karma, ordinary conventional dedication, will prevent it from being exhausted just, in other kinds of virtuous fruitions. So there's a difference. So you kind of get an idea of what I'm saying? There will be a whole section about that coming up.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, how are we doing? We okay? Okay. So it said, whatever reason, whether you didn't ascertain it was a bodhisattva or because of your habituation, if you get angry, If a bodhisattva experiences anger felt even for an instant toward another bodhisattva who has generated the awakening mind based on exaggerated projection of real or unreal faults. So in other words, there may be some other fault. You might get angry at the bodhisattva because they did do something faulty, or it may be you've exaggerated that, or there's no fault at all. They were actually doing something beyond your ken, what they were doing. You thought they were doing something wrong, like the bodhisattva, killing the captain on the ship out of compassion for all of the members of the ship and out of compassion for the person who was doing the killing. That's just one example. Let me just go a little bit further, Ada, and I'll answer your question. So based on exaggerated projection of real or unreal faults, this alone destroys a collection of merit gathered over 100 eons, such as virtue derived from habituation, practicing, again and again, the perfection of generosity, the perfection of morality, ethics that we described before. So the bodhisattva, on the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, they don't have the extraordinary practice of perfection of generosity and morality that a person on the first and second bhumis do, but they do practice them. They try to practice all of the 6 perfections, and they've accumulated merit for a long time. If this is so, what need is there to speak of a non-bodhisattva, someone like me, experiencing anger toward a bodhisattva? So if even a bodhisattva on the path of accumulation and path of preparation can destroy 100 eons of merit that they've created in one instant of anger, just one instant, what need is there to speak of us? Therefore, just as the volume of water in the oceans cannot be measured with a scale, this is Jimpa's translation. Do you measure volume with a scale? It's sometimes Jimpa's, I'm not sure. Just as the amount of water, Jeffrey translates, just as one cannot measure the amount of water in the great ocean. I don't know if you say volume of water. The extent of the fruitional effects of being angry toward a bodhisattva, you can't measure, you can't determine that. Okay, it's just like immense. You had a question.
Well, I guess it will be answered shortly, but I was thinking that when a bodhisattva generates anger towards another bodhisattva and loses so much merit and virtues, does he have to start all over again on the path? Does he have to go back again to the path of accumulation?
Yeah, so
is it that bad?
It could be. So in the coming section, Lama Tsongkhapa goes to, on the basis of Chandrakirti's teaching, goes to great detail to explain all of the intricacies of this. In some circumstances, it can cause one to, let's say, one's development of other realizations to be postponed. If you were about to realize a certain level of the path of preparation, say if you're on the second level of the path of preparation and you get angry, that can put off your accumulation, your accomplishment of the third level for eons. And it's sometimes the terminology is said that they have to put on the armor again. They have to they had enough merit to almost just about to achieve the next level, but now that merit has been destroyed, so they have to again accumulate merit for a long period of time. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will regress, on the path. Okay. Rocio, you have a thought?
Yes, I do have a question. And my question is, just to refresh, in which bhumi or when is it that anger and afflictions do not arise anymore in the mind? And the context is, I usually pray, my own praying is that may I one day have a mind where this doesn't arise, so I can't deal, I don't have to deal with. So it's very simple. In
So
which
on the path of seeing, on the first bhumi, that bodhisattva has eliminated anger that is due to the intellectually formed apprehension. Let's say what we say intellectually formed anger, not the innate. On the second bhumi, some of the innate anger has been destroyed. Some of the innate delusions of the desire realm have been destroyed. So I think by the second bhumi or the third bhumi, a bodhisattva would have no anger. I'm not sure if it would have to achieve the third bhumi, but certainly by the second bhumi, the bodhisattva has no longer anger in the desire realm. So they're not the people that are being talked about. Here is talking about ordinary beings and bodhisattvas before they've realized emptiness, getting angry at a bodhisattva. A person on the second bhumi or third bhumi won't get angry in that same way. They may criticize without getting angry, and they can destroy some of their anger, some of their merit by criticizing, but they won't get angry after that point. Okay, so let's go on. So therefore, just as the amount of water in the ocean can't be measured by a scale, nowadays you can kind of calculate how much water there is in the oceans, right? With the satellite maps and everything, all the dimensions and everything, and how much water weighs and so forth, you can calculate. But this is talking about ancient times, right? The extent of the fruitional effects of being angry toward a bodhisattva cannot be determined. Therefore, when it comes to propelling unwelcome consequences as its effect, and when it comes to harming the virtues, there is no similar evil to intolerance, or is it just in common terminology. So this is kind of like I say, a double whammy in terms of producing negative suffering effects in the future. Anger is bad. That's what all of the delusions create, that kind of harm. But anger has the double whammy, if you want, of also destroying virtuous karma that we've created. When it comes to harming virtue, there's no similar evil to intolerance or impatience or anger, namely anger. In explanation of the commentary, the phrase exaggerated projection of real or unreal faults is explained as exaggerating minor faults as being great. So that's when it's talking about the commentary, the explanation of the commentary. So the commentary means Chandrakirti's own auto commentary, right? So the explanation of the commentary is how Jimpa's translating Jayananda's Sanskrit commentary. So this is Jayananda's explanation of that. So Lama Tsongkhapa often, although he finds fault with Jayananda's commentary sometimes he goes along with it. So he seems like he's accepting that here, that exaggerated projection of real or unreal faults means that the bodhisattva or the person is exaggerating the fault of another bodhisattva. Okay, are we okay? David, are you okay? Yeah, okay. Make sure. So where is where is Karen? You're both on the same porch, right? Or are you different sides of the house?
We're sitting right now.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Good. So then continuing, with respect to the destruction of the roots of virtue. Okay, when we talk about roots of virtue, it has particular kind of definition, but here it says in the sutra called The Manifestations of Manjushri, there's a famous stanza that says, Manjushri, what is called anger, anger is so named because it verily destroys virtues gathered over 100 eons. So Jeffrey translates that as Manjushri, anger destroys virtue accumulated over 100 eons. Okay, that's simple. So what is that? What is that sutra? So you can find on the 84,000 website, the 84,000 translation project that Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche started. You can find a translation of the miraculous play of Manjushri. How does so here Jempa translates as manifestations of Manjushri. So Manjushri Vikridita is called. There are 226 verses in that sutra. And just to give a little background, it's quite interesting. So this is kind of a discourse between a young maiden, or in the 84,000 translation, they called her girl. Here it says the maiden or girl is a beautiful courtesan's daughter. You know what a courtesan is? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Paul, what is a courtesan?
Courtesan is what we politely say in New York City, a
Street worker? Sex worker?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm forgetting what the word is now. An escort. An
escort, right. Escort, right. Okay, so the maiden here is a beautiful courtesan's daughter, or maybe the maiden or the girl is herself a courtesan. Okay, maybe she's both. Maybe she's the daughter of a courtesan and she herself is in that profession. Her name is Suvarno Upaprabashi. So she has been, her favors have been purchased by a banker's son. But while they are riding together toward a pleasure garden, the girl's attentions are captivated instead of to her, her patron here, captivated by the radiantly attractive Manjushri, Bodhisattva Manjushri, who gives her instructions related to the meaning of the mind set on awakening, gives her teachings on bodhicitta. She then expresses her new understanding in a dialogue with Manjushri in the presence of King Ajatasattu. So this is at the time of the Buddha, King Ajatasattu and his retinue, the citizens of Rajagriha. So this is the context. So I'll read you a verse or two before this famous verse, where it says, Manjushri, what is called anger, anger. So in verse, so that's verse 112. So I'll read you verse 111 first. Manjushri asks her, so she's already developed understanding due to his instruction. Now in the presence of the king and other people, he's questioning her so that she will explain the Dharma to them, okay? Manjushri asks, girl or maiden, where does so-called patience come from? And the girl, the maiden answered, it comes from being hurt by all beings, Manjushri. Maybe we could understand that it means by any being, anger comes about from being hurt by beings. Why is this? If one is not hurt, there is no patience. So You know, in the Christian tradition also, they talk about suffering as having virtues, right? Feeling hurt by others has a virtue in that it can help you to develop patience. It says, why is this? If one is not hurt, there is no patience. But those who, even though they have been hurt by all beings or any beings, are unperturbed and do not harm anyone, they have cultivated patience. So that's kind of the context. So this is the famous verse that's being quoted here. So it starts with a question again by Manjushri. Manjushri asks, girl, maiden, what is so-called anger like? What's it like? What is anger? So the girl, the maiden, answers, Manjushri, that which harms the roots of virtue collected for 100 eons is called anger. Okay, how does he translates it here? Manjushri, what is called anger? Anger. So this is her response. This is the young girl's response when he asked her, what is it like? It's called that because it destroys virtues gathered over 100 eons. So this is a little bit, you know, you might say, why? There's a little bit of play here of the Sanskrit. So I'll read you note number 10 in that 84,000. You can download this sutra. This sentence, this little phrase that the courtesan responded, that was quoted by Chandrakirti and is quoted by Lama Tsongkhapa here. This sentence is very widely quoted in the commentarial literature, both Indian and Tibetan. The Sanskrit can be found in the Siksha Samuchaya. So the Siksha Samuchaya is what? Who wrote the Siksha Samuchaya? Do you know, Don?
No, I don't.
You could, yeah. Okay. Siksha Samuchaya is the compendium of trainings, right? By who? Shantideva. So Shantideva's two main texts were the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Then when he disappeared, then the monks from Nalanda tried to find him. It's said that he gave them, when they found him somewhere else meditating, he gave them this composition, the Siksha Samuchaya, gave the sort of scriptural sources for all of Shantideva's assertions in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So it's a very important text. So the Sanskrit can be found in the Siksha Samuchaya, as well as in the commentary to the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So in that, I'll read a little bit. Pratiga iti kalpa shato pachitam kushala mulam pratitanti tenochati pratiga iti. So you say, what is that? So the etymological relationships are lost in translation. The word anger, or you could translate hostility, is pratiga, right? Do you know, Paul, Sanskrit? John, do you know for anger? What we usually say kondro, right, in Tibetan. So in Sanskrit, that's pratiga. So that comes in that sentence. Because it destroys the roots of virtue, which is pratihanti. The word, you might say, it's called anger because it destroys the roots of virtue. Why is that? Why is it therefore called anger? It's trying to call an etymological distinction of the word destroy, pratihanti, which is similar to pratiga in the Sanskrit. Okay, maybe not that important. As well as being an important doctrinal point, this sentence also constitutes a canonical gloss of the term pratiga, anger, which has the more general meaning of hostility or aversion compared to the standard Tibetan translation of kondro. Okay, so just, and So that's what's being talked about there. Why it's called anger is because it destroys. The word destroy in this context is similar to the word anger. And then just after that, Manjushri asks the maiden, what could be called non-anger? And the young girl, the maiden, answered, Manjushri, those who have no negative thoughts and do not cause harm to any object are known to be those who are patient. So that the Sanskrit of that verse also exists. If you're interested, you can find in that text. Okay, so with respect to the roots of virtue, this is kind of like a canonical source, the canon, the sutra, that says that roots of virtue are destroyed that have been gathered over 100 eons. Then the commentary continues, although it is not explicit in this sutra whether the object of anger and the person who is angry here are both bodhisattvas. It just says, you know, if you get angry at a bodhisattva, one of them is a bodhisattva. The person you're getting angry at is a bodhisattva. In Chandrakirti's commentary, it's his auto commentary, both the object and the agent are described as bodhisattvas. So that would have to mean a bodhisattva on the path of accumulation or path of preparation, getting angry with another bodhisattva, or maybe even possibly a bodhisattva on the path of seeing, but very unlikely. The compendium of sutras. What's the compendium of sutras? Nadine, you know the compendium of sutras?
Yes, Sutra Samuchaya from Nagarjuna.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Nadine, who studied these wells, of course, everyone knows it. I just, maybe some people didn't know. So the compendium of sutras, we've talked about it before, this famous text that Paul kindly gave us the, what was it, the Lin?
Yeah, the Linson.
Linson translation that was put up on the web page. You can find that on the group page. So there, just before citing the above passage from the manifestations of Manjushri Sutra, or the miraculous play of Manjushri, as it could be translated, just before that, it quotes the following from Maitreya's Lion Roar Sutra. Okay, so there's another sutra called the Great Lion's Roar of Maitreya, which is also interestingly translated by the 84,000. You can download that whole sutra. There it's called the Great Lion's Roar of Maitreya. And this is one of the, maybe Nadine knows. Where do you find that sutra? Do you know, Nadine?
No, I can only guess, maybe in the Ratnakuta.
It is. Yeah, that's your favorite compendium. So the Ratnakuta is one that we've mentioned before, is one of the Mahavipulya sutras that has so many different chapters. Maybe they were originally different sutras by themselves. So this is one of the 49 sutras that make up that. And here, so I'll read you verse 112 of this sutra, and 13, 14, and 15. Maitreya, suppose a bodhisattva insulted, ridiculed, bludgeoned, or stabbed all the beings that make up the number of beings in the great billion-fold universe. Usually in Tibetan, we say that's the Tong Sum, which kind of means 1,000 cubed. 1,000 squared is what? Does anyone know? What's a mathematician? What's 1,000?
A million?
A million. And what's another 1,000 times that?
A thousand. Oh, 1,000 cubed.
1,000, yeah, it's a billion, right? 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000. So in Tibetan, in Edward call it the trichiliocosm. That's how they translated that into English. Trichilio, 1,000, 3,000. It doesn't mean 3,000 worlds. It means 1,000 worlds taken 1,000 times, and that unit taken 1,000 times. So 1 billion universes. Maitreya, suppose a bodhisattva insulted, ridiculed, bludgeoned, or stabbed all beings that make up the number of beings in the trichiliocosm, or the great billion-fold universe. What do you think, Maitreya? If that bodhisattva insulted and ridiculed, bludgeoned, and stabbed that many beings, on that basis, would they create much sin, much negativity, much injury and corruption? Right? So Maitreya says, Blessed One, Bhagavan, if they insulted, ridiculed, bludgeoned, or stabbed even a single being, it would create a great deal of non-merit. So needless to say, that would apply for all the beings in the great billion-fold universe. You know, if you just did that to one person, you'd create a lot of dismerit, unmerit, way to say negativity. If you did it to everyone, there's no need to say that. This is because, Blessed One, Bhagavan, it is the bodhisattva's goal not to be obstinate, angry, or malicious toward any being at all. Okay, so then the Bhagavan, the Blessed One, here is translated, said to the bodhisattva, the great being Maitreya, Maitreya, if a bodhisattva who insulted, ridiculed, bludgeoned, or stabbed all the beings included in the great billion-fold universe, if that bodhisattva conceived even a single obstinate or angry thought toward another bodhisattva, they would not thereby injure or corrupt the other bodhisattva. But Maitreya, if the bodhisattva conceived an obstinate or angry thought toward the other bodhisattva, and that bodhisattva was one who does not give up on awakening, they will have to put on the armor for the sake of awakening for as many eons as the number of thoughts they have conceived. So that's essentially we'll go back to this verse here. It's saying that for every instant that they had anger toward that other bodhisattva, they would have to put on the armor. How did it say here? They would have to put on the armor for the sake of awakening for as many eons as the number of thoughts they have conceived. That means they'd have to start collecting that merit again. They wouldn't go back to the earlier path, but the merit that they had that would have been enabled them to make realizations, that's been destroyed. So they'll have to persevere again to do that. Then the next verse says, Maitreya, by way of analogy, iron can only be cut by iron itself. You can't cut iron by earth, wood, or grass. What are people talking about? You can't cut a diamond with glass or other things. You have to use another diamond, right? So it's kind of here is saying iron can only be cut by iron itself, not by earth, wood, or grass. In the same way, Maitreya, the virtuous roots of a bodhisattva are only extinguished if they conceive an obstinate or angry thought toward another bodhisattva. They are not extinguished otherwise. Therefore, Maitreya, you should treat one another with courtesy and respect. This is how you should train yourselves. And you should conceive of a bodhisattva who has aroused the initial thought of awakening as your teacher. Sean, what do you think?
I wanted to see if I could get some clarity on. So like even in this text, there's demonstration of people kind of criticizing others' view. Sometimes showing, or I guess more often they're showing the absurdity of the view,
Right.
Which then has a tendency to make those people that you're showing how absurd their view is to get angry themselves. How is that still a type of criticism that's considered negative when you're trying to correct or wrong view.
Right. So this is an interesting side conversation. What is that called in general? That kind of literature.
Polemic.
Polemic, yeah, polemics, yeah. So in Jose Cabezon's Dose of Emptiness, which was the Tibetan text was composed by Khedrubje, right? One of Lama Tsongkhapa's two disciples. So Khedrubje is known for this polemical kind of thing, criticizing others who found fault with Lama Tsongkhapa and mocking them in various kinds of ways. So one has to wonder if it is not done out of a malicious thought, it's not considered this kind of breach that would cause the diminishment of merit. If it's done erroneously, if it's done because you've logically analyzed another person's position and you are showing how that's inconsistent, that's not considered to be this kind of negativity, but it does border on that, and it's not something that we should emulate. You shouldn't be calling other people, names and criticizing them, mocking them, because that can cause harm to the other person and so forth. But in the case of debate, one is trying to cause the other person to reevaluate their position by pointing out the absurd consequences of their position. Okay? So that's legitimate. Okay. So let's read this quotation the way that Jimpa has it here. If a bodhisattva were to berate, utter threats, beat all ordinary sentient beings within this billion-fold world system with a whip, a club, or with his fist. So I don't know where Jimpa gets the whip from. Hopkins translates, by merely attacking all sentient beings in the realm of the 1,000 world systems, having a billion worlds, with reproach, rebuke, sticks, and fists, a bodhisattva does not wound or scar himself. Okay, it says, it doesn't talk about whips in here. I don't know where Jimpa got that from. The bodhisattva would not suffer wounds or become injured by these. So if the bodhisattva were to beat up all the people in the three realms, in the billion world systems, it's not going to create negative karma for him. If, however, a bodhisattva were to engender a harmful intent, enmity, or a thought of hatred toward a single fellow bodhisattva, so this is different than what Sean is pointing out, the polemics. It's not done with hatred or enmity. This alone would inflict wounds to that bodhisattva who is making the anger, creating the anger, and it would injure him. It would injure them. Why is this so? Because if he had, by such an act, not already forsaken omniscience, such a bodhisattva would need to put on armor for eons equal to the moments he engendered harmful intent, enmity, and thoughts of hatred toward another bodhisattva. Why is this so? Why is it so harmful? Because, I'll read it again, if he had, by such an act, not already forsaken omniscience, maybe they've already given up bodhicitta. If they haven't, if they're still intent on achieving enlightenment, such a bodhisattva would need to put on armor for eons equal to the moments of harmful intent, enmity, and thoughts of hatred toward another bodhisattva. So Jeffrey Hopkins, in his text on page 210, he explains what it means, put on the armor, wear the armor. He puts in parentheses, practice the 6 perfections. They would have to practice the 6 perfections again for eons equal to the moments he engendered harmful intent. Making sense? We're on the same page? Okay. So then Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary continues. Thus, Chandrakirti's account of how both the object and the agent of anger here are to be explained as bodhisattvas appears to be based on this sutra passage. When Chandrakirti was talking about where is it here? Let's talk about 100 eons here. For eons equal to the number of moments he engendered harmful intent, enmity, and thoughts. Okay. So then the text continues. If this is so, how does one understand Arya Shura and Shantideva's statements, such as the following about how anger destroys roots of virtue gathered over 1,000 eons? So, you all know who Shantideva is. Who's Arya Shura? Does anyone know? What's the other name we know him by? Shankar, do you know Arya Shura?
I don't remember, sorry.
John?
Arya Shura is the author of Lives of the Buddha.
One of those. Yeah. What's another name that he's known by? Is it another name?
Matracheta, isn't it?
Matracheta, maybe, yeah. Okay. So anyway, you may not be one that you've encountered before. So this is a quotation from Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, and Jimpa has gathered over 1,000 eons through giving, venerating the Sugatas and so on. Whatever good deeds there are, an instance of anger destroys all. Or Jeffrey puts more precisely, one moment's hatred destroys all the good deeds of giving, worshiping, Sugatas, and so forth, amassed over 1,000 eons. Or in Steve Batchelor's translation of Bodhisattva Charyavatara, this is the first verse of chapter 6, the patience chapter. Steve Batchelor translated, what other wholesome deeds, such as venerating the Buddhas and generosity, that have been amassed over 1,000 eons will all be destroyed in one moment of anger. Earlier was talking about 100 eons. Now here is talking about 1,000 eons. So that's why this question comes. How does one understand Arya Shura and Shantideva's statements such as the following, how anger destroys roots of virtue gathered over 1,000 eons? This is greater than 100 eons, right? So the commentary says, Lama Tsongkhapa says, although some commentaries to the guide, commentaries on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way, one translation I like the title is the Bodhisattva's Handbook. It's very German, isn't it? Like Handbuch. So the Bodhisattva Charyavatara is the Bodhisattva's Handbook. Although some commentaries state that a single instance of anger toward a sentient being destroys virtues gathered over many thousands of eons, Lama Tsongkhapa says, this is hard to believe. So this is actually, when it says some commentaries, this means Prajnakaramatis commentary. So that's there are several commentaries to Bodhisattva Charyavatara in Sanskrit. Prajnakaramatis is one of the most renowned ones. Lama Tsongkhapa says that sounds a bit iffy, right? That a single moment of anger toward a sentient being destroys virtues over many thousands of eons. That doesn't seem right. In any case, Lama Tsongkhapa says, although these two masters do not specify the object and agent, the object of anger that destroys the roots of virtue of 100 or 1,000 eons has to be a bodhisattva. So what does that mean, object and agent? what is the object of anger? Rachel, do you know? What would it be?
So if this is someone who's being angry at a bodhisattva, the bodhisattva is the object of it.
Yeah, so when you talk about object, that means who you're getting angry at. And who's the agent? The agent is the person getting angry, right? Yeah, that's what you guys. I'm sorry, I preempted you. I asked you for your question. I preempted it. Okay, so just so you know, so Jeffrey translates a little bit different. Jeffrey translates object and the base instead of object and agent. So why does base make sense? Because generally, when we talk about someone having certain quality, we say, what is the basis of generating bodhicitta? The basis means having a body and mind stream of certain qualities. So that's just another way of saying agent here. Okay. So as to the agent of such anger, so the object has to be a bodhisattva. If you're destroying 100 eons or 1,000 eons, who you're getting angry at has to be a bodhisattva. You can't destroy that much anger, that much merit by getting angry at an ordinary person. As to the agent of such anger, who's getting angry, the expression great bodhisattva being, where does that come in where is that coming? Bodhisattva Mahatma. Where is that coming? On the basis of the reference to a bodhisattva, a great being, we make an inference about the base or the agent, the 10 of the anger. In Chandrakirti's text, it appears that he is a bodhisattva of greater power than the bodhisattva who is the object. As to the agent of such anger, the expression of great bodhisattva infers that it is a bodhisattva more advanced than the bodhisattva who is the object of such anger. Where does that phrase that he has in quotation marks there, great bodhisattva being, where does that come? Anyone know? Okay. Anyone have an idea? Because he puts in quotations there. As to the agent of such anger, the expression great bodhisattva being infers that it is a bodhisattva more advanced than the bodhisattva who is the object of anger. So somewhere earlier in one of these quotations, it was talking about the bodhisattva who's getting angry as being a great bodhisattva being or a bodhisattva Mahatma. What does Mahatma mean? Does anyone know?
Great soul. I mean, a great being.
Yeah. Who do we often use that epithet toward? Mahatma Gandhi, right? That's where so Mahatma, because the A that ends in Maha is the first letter of Atma. Mahatma becomes Mahatma, so it means a great being. In the Heart Sutra, what is it talked about Bodhisattva Mahatma, or is it talks about Bodhisattva Mahasattva? Right?
Yeah.
Jangchup Sempa. What is it? Sempa Chempo. Jangchup Sempa Chempo. So there's a little bit different. Mahasattva is a little bit different here than Mahatma. It just means someone who's very great, a great bodhisattva. In other words, as Jimpa translates here, great bodhisattva being infers that it is a bodhisattva more advanced than the bodhisattva who is the object of the anger. Okay, So the agent of anger in this context is certain to be a bodhisattva on the ordinary stage. What's the ordinary stage? Anyone know?
The first 7 in the path of meditation. I mean, sorry, path of seeing. The first 7 bhumis is what I meant.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's thinking? Stephen, what do you think?
Path of accumulation and path of preparation. So just before the path of seeing.
Yeah, I think that's what's meant here. Ordinary stage. It means not an Arya. One is an ordinary being, not an Arya being. The agent of anger in this context is certain to be a bodhisattva on the ordinary stage, an ordinary bodhisattva, while the object can either be one who has attained the grounds or not. You can get angry at someone who is a little more advanced than you, who's still on the path of preparation, let's say, or is on the path of seeing, or not. So the following 3 permutations are possible. One permutation: a more advanced bodhisattva being angry at a less advanced bodhisattva. So a higher bodhisattva being angry at a lesser bodhisattva, right? A lesser bodhisattva, less advanced bodhisattva, being angry at a more advanced one. Those are 2 obvious ones, right? Then 3, both the object and the agent of the anger have equal attainments. 3 possibilities. So Lama Tsongkhapa is analyzing those. In the first case, if a more advanced bodhisattva gets angry at a lesser bodhisattva, the virtues destroyed would be those of 100 eons. So if the higher bodhisattva gets angry at a lesser bodhisattva, 100 eons are destroyed. Where is that? Where I lost the place. And if a non-bodhisattva were to become angry at a bodhisattva, that would be lower with a higher, right? It seems the virtues destroyed would be that of 1,000 eons. As to how extensively the roots of virtue are destroyed in the second and third cases, that means if the lower gets angry at a higher, or if they are the same level, and how to understand the superiority and inferiority of the object in the context of the second example, these should be examined on the basis of the scriptures. What does that mean? Understand the superiority and inferiority. Jeffrey Hopkins translates that stanza. I will analyze, Lama Tsongkhapa will analyze, in relation to scriptures, the destruction, virtuous roots, when a lesser, maybe the destruction of virtuous roots, when a lesser bodhisattva becomes angry with a greater one, the second case, and when a bodhisattva is angry with an equal, that is the third case. I will also analyze the destruction of roots of virtue in relation to the status of the object when a lesser bodhisattva becomes angry with a greater, the second case. Okay, so that's still coming. So now the text continues. The passage in Maitreya's Lion Roar Sutra that I read before, the great lion roar of Maitreya, in that Buddha is talking to Maitreya, right? The passage that said, within this billion-fold world system, up to not injured by these, so that's referring to a certain portion of that statement. Let's see, how does Jeffrey translate that? Jeffrey says, so when he says, he's saying from one point in that quotation to another, so that section is in Jimpa's translation, if a bodhisattva were to berate, utter threats, and beat all ordinary beings within this billion-fold world system with a whip, it's not a whip, club, or with his fist, to that extent, the bodhisattva would not suffer wounds or become injured by these. Or as Jeffrey translates, merely by attacking all sentient beings in the realm of 1,000 world systems having a billion worlds with reproach, rebuke, sticks, and fists, a bodhisattva does not wound or scar himself. So that passage, those words explain how a bodhisattva who, on the basis of experiencing anger in his mind, in her mind, toward a non-bodhisattva, verbally berates him, physically hits him, is different from one who wounds a bodhisattva and injures a bodhisattva. From this, we can understand that it is not necessary in such a case to put on the armor once again from the start, to don Erickson, don the armor once again from the start. What is that don? What is that kind of like? Where is that? What do you say? Don to we have some Christmas carols like that. And don the
gay apparel.
Don the gay apparel, right? Yeah. So it's not like Victorian language, but kind of like that. So to put on the armor once again from the start. So that it says it doesn't injure them, the agent, but they still destroy merit, but they don't have to start accumulating again from the beginning. In contrast, regarding a bodhisattva who merely engenders anger toward another bodhisattva, even without any manifestation in body and speech. So that means they're just thinking it, in their mind, they're just thinking some bad thoughts. They're not expressing it with anger. They're not saying it in words. Regarding a bodhisattva who merely engenders anger toward another bodhisattva, even without any manifestation in body and speech, it is said that they need to don the armor for eons equaling the number of instants such a state of mind lasted. If you're thinking these angry thoughts for many seconds, there's that many eons of merit is being destroyed. He needs to don the armor for eons equaling the number of instants. So that means it's not talking about destroying the karma, but that they have to then engage in those practices again that they had already practiced before for as many eons as there were moments of anger. It seems that the object of such anger is a bodhisattva who has received the prophecy, while the agent is a bodhisattva who has not yet received the prophecy. What does that mean?
Prediction of when they will become enlightened.
Yeah. So who are bodhisattvas who have received prophecies? Or let's say who are beings who have received prophecies? At what point does that take place?
Oh.
Anyone know?
No.
John, Paul, So receiving prophecy can mean different things. Generally, the Buddha made prophecies to different people. Like, say, for instance, Shakyamuni himself received a prophecy that he would become, when he wasn't called Shakyamuni at that time, when he was first developed bodhicitta, the Buddha with whom he was present at that time prophesies that in the future eon, so-and-so, you will be called Shakyamuni, and so forth and so on. So receiving a prophecy generally means that a person, either they want to develop bodhicitta, they've made a statement that they want to develop bodhicitta, and the Buddha has prophesized them, or that a bodhisattva at a certain level, in the path of preparation, a path of accumulation, a path of preparation has been prophesized by a Buddha. There can be other meanings of that also. So if you are criticizing, or you're getting angry with a bodhisattva who's received a prophecy, it says, it seems that the object of such anger is a bodhisattva who has received the prophecy. That is, who you're getting angry at is someone who has received prophecy, whereas the agent is a bodhisattva who has not received that prophecy. So you have to put on the armor for that number of eons of the moments that you got angry. So there's another Prajnaparamita text here called the Condensed Perfection of Wisdom. Okay. In that, there is a statement: if a bodhisattva who has not yet received the prophecy feels anger and initiates dispute with one who has received it, he must don the armor, must put on the armor for as many eons as the moments of his flawed mind of enmity. Then Lama Tsongkhapa comments, the need to put on the armor, to don the armor once again from the start, means the following. Say a bodhisattva is able to progress soon from the great path of accumulation to the path of preparation. So what does that mean? So path of accumulation has, you can divide it various ways. Usually we say about the small, middling, and great, right? Is it right? Or four? Just usually three, right? Path of preparation has usually 4 stages. So path of accumulation. So someone's on the path of accumulation just about to achieve the path of preparation. So then the great level of the path of accumulation, that means they've accumulated the merit to, in very shortly, to have a unification of shamatha and vipassana, tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, realizing emptiness intellectually, right? Because they're on the path of accumulation. The demarcation between the path of accumulation and the path of preparation is on the path of preparation. One enters into that path when one has a unification of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, realizing emptiness by means of a mental image, intellectually, right? It's not yet a direct realization, but that's the demarcation between the path of accumulation and path of preparation. So let me read again. So the need to put on the armor once again from the start means the following. Say a bodhisattva is able to progress soon from the great stage of the path of accumulation to the path of preparation. They're soon going to be able to have that unification of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, realizing emptiness. Were he to become angry at a fellow bodhisattva who has received the prophecy, then equal to the number of instances he experienced such anger, for that many eons he will not be able to advance to the path of preparation. It's kind of mean put on the armor means kind of like they have to almost be patient with that situation. They just have to put on the armor, waiting that amount of time. He will instead need to train on the path once again. In this respect, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way, Bodhisattva Charavatara, says, if toward a bodhisattva who is a great benefactor, one were to engender thoughts of ill will for eons equal to the instance such ill will arose, he will reside in the hells. So the sage said. Jeffrey translates a little more directly. The subduer, that means the Muni, of Shakyamuni, the Muni said that one who generates a bad mind to such a conqueror's child, patron, will stay in hell for as many eons as there were instants of the bad mind which he generated. So what's that talking about? Is that talking about a bodhisattva getting angry at another bodhisattva? Can a bodhisattva go to the hell realm as a result, not wishing to help sentient beings, but just because of their karma? Richo says yes. I take that for yes. Sean says no. Stephen says what? Where's Stephen's head going? Stephen's going, no. Toby, what do you think? Okay, so here it says, here the commentary says, here it is stated that equal to the instance of angry thoughts that one has engendered toward a bodhisattva, for that corresponding number of eons, one would remain in hells. There is also the ill consequence of destroying the roots of virtue gathered over many eons. Now, if someone who has not received a prophecy were to experience anger toward a bodhisattva who has received it, he will remain in the hells. This is just as mentioned in the immediately preceding passage. There is also an instance where the bodhisattva will have to don the armor for that number of eons. So this seems to be saying that the bodhisattva can, as a result of being angry with a higher bodhisattva, end up in the hell realms, or as Jeffrey translated that last sentence, the subduer. The Muni said that one who generates a bad mind toward a conqueror's child patron, and Jeffrey's note says patron here refers to one who gives all help and happiness. So if one has a bad mind toward a conqueror child patron, one will stay in hell for as many eons as there were instances of bad mind which he generated. So when is it that one will no longer be reborn in the lower realms? Some people were saying, no, the bodhisattva can't be born in the lower realms. Is that true?
I thought it was on the first bhumi.
Definitely on the first bhumi, but also earlier on the, I think the patience level of the path of preparation, even though one hasn't abandoned, let's see, in the 12 links, craving and grasping are the links that ripen a karmic seed so that it's ready to become your next life, right? So on the patience level, the path of preparation, the manifest delusions are subdued. They're not yet abandoned, but that the ability to throw you into lower realms is not present then, generally. But if you get angry at a bodhisattva, even that person on the path of preparation can be born in the lower realms. So certainly it can be ordinary beings getting angry at a bodhisattva, or other bodhisattvas on the path of accumulation or path of preparation getting angry with a bodhisattva.
So if a bodhisattva on the first bhumi got angry at a bodhisattva on the seventh bhumi, what happens?
Well, bodhisattva on the first bhumi may not have abandoned all of the anger, the what is it called? The innate anger of the desire realm. They've they've abandoned the intellectually formed anger. So I think they possibly, that's an exceptional case. Generally, a person who's achieved the first bhumi will not be born in the lower realms, but there's some exceptions to that if they were to, on the first bhumi, because they still have innate anger of the desire realm. If they get angry with another bodhisattva, like you said, of the seventh bhumi or some other bhumi above them, they could be reborn in the hell realms. That's kind of like by the power of the object, right? How are we doing? Making sense? Rachel, you have this kind of look of doubt in your mind. Yeah.
It's more discouragement, Venerable George. How are we not going to get discouraged? I mean, this is incredibly, I mean, I thought that by the time we got to be a bodhisattva, we'd be, you know, in better shape than this. And
yeah. Well, this is talking about some extreme cases. Generally, when you're a bodhisattva, especially if you spent some eons accumulating merit on the path of accumulation and path of preparation, generally you don't treat other sentient beings with disrespect or harm them, generally. But there's some exceptions. If you were to get, you know, you can still get angry on the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, but you may not carry that out, you know, in action very much. But if the person that you're getting angry with is someone who is a bodhisattva higher than you, that can create the karma because of the object for you to spend that time in the hell realms. So that's why that quotation from I'm hesitant to say, I think it was Dharmakirti, may have been Arya Deva or someone else, that if you don't have the clairvoyance to know another person's mind, you should just assume that they are a bodhisattva. That's the safest thing. It's like walking on the ground, you know, walking above a fire pit, not knowing that there's a fire pit below because you don't have the clairvoyance to see what's below ground there. You know, that's the analogy that's used for, you know, for the caution that you should have in criticizing other beings. Yeah, Rachel.
I have another question coming up.
Yeah.
And that is, well, if a bodhisattva needed to practice patience, particularly on the third bhumi, and another younger or older, just to use those terms, bodhisattva were to get angry at them in order to challenge them to practice their patience, we're talking about only real anger, but even real anger would be the thing that would inspire the practice for the bodhisattva. So wouldn't you be gaining some sort of merit by providing kind of an opportunity?
So the person on the third bhumi is not going to get angry, right? They have a surpassing practice of patience. They have already abandoned the anger of the desire realm. So they're not going to get angry. You know, they can cut off their ear, their nose, their tongue, everything while they're sitting there. The example that we gave before, they're not going to get angry. So this talking about people before that, because of habituation, not investigating, not realizing the person that you were getting angry with was a bodhisattva. Okay. So the main thing is just to have this caution in dealing with other beings. Let's say amongst the members of the various centers, there gotta be some bodhisattvas there in disguise, right? You know, if you think about it, where are the bodhisattvas, you know, where are they going to be in the world? There's got to be someone at Shantideva Center or Kadampa Center, you know, Tupten Norbo Ling or other centers, you know, Sechen Ling, that are bodhisattvas. So you have to be careful, you know. with whom you criticize. Rosha, let me just finish this section here. So then there's a quotation from the Gathering All Fragments Sutra, which Hopkins says, compendium of all weaving sutra. I like Geshe Sopa's translation in his commentary, his commentary on the Lanrim Chemo. He quotes this, there it's translated, Gathering All the Threads Sutra. So rather than fragments, threads. So in this sutra, it states that if one accrues the karma of abandoning the Dharma, if one abandons the Dharma, in other words, if you do that action of abandoning the Dharma, one would have to declare and purify this defect 3 times every day, every single day, up to 7 years to purify its fruitional effects. That's just its fruitional effects. If you abandon the Dharma. Abandoning the Dharma is something that we could very easily do. You might say, oh, I would never abandon the Dharma. But if you think, oh, the practices of the hearers, that's not necessary. The practices of the Pratika Buddhas, that's not necessary. That also constitutes abandoning the Dharma. So you would have to, it would take you 7 years if you confess that with the 4 opponent forces 3 times for 7 years to purify the fruition. But to obtain, and Jimpa's, I think, erroneous translation here, but to obtain the forbearance level of the path of preparation would require 10 eons, even if it were swift. The Tibetan text doesn't say that. It says, as Hopkins translates, but even at the fastest, 10 eons are necessary to attain endurance. Sopa topa la nurnang kelpa chugupar sungvatar, the Tibetan says. So here, to attain endurance or patience means, as Jeffrey has in parentheses, the facility allowing progress to the next path. It doesn't talk anything about the path of preparation. I think Jimpa is just assuming that patience, that it's the patience level of the path of preparation. It's not the patience level of the path of preparation. It's just saying in order to obtain forbearance, it would require 10 eons. And Jeffrey translates that forbearance means having the facility to allow progress to the next path. Okay, and then final sentence, as this states, purifying and cultivating resolve in all possible ways may not rectify the delaying of the path. So we've mentioned sometimes before, you might think, oh, if I create negative karma, there's no problem. I can always purify it, right? And the example that's often given the lamas is that, say, for instance, if you break your bone, your arm, of course you can put a cast on it and it can be, can grow back, but it won't be as strong as it was before, right? So there's no, you shouldn't think that it's no problem if I create negative karma, I can always purify it. Here it's stating it a little more starkly. As this states, purifying and cultivating resolve in all possible ways may not rectify the delaying of the path, but it will cleanse the fruitional effects of the karma, so we must strive in them. So just doing these activities, purifying and so forth, won't. How to say? He puts it in a kind of a little bit awkward way there. Let's see. Oh, I can't find it right there. So where is it? This is Hopkins 2:13. How does Hopkins translate that? No, I can't find that.
212, the last paragraph.
Oh, the last paragraph of 212. Okay. Thus, even though confession and restraint, thank you, Ida, even though confession and restraint in many ways does not restore a path that has been become slower, it will purify the experience of fruition. Jimpa sort of puts it in the opposite way. Okay. So we're going to start, next time we're going to start with the points that emerge as side considerations. Let me just make a note here. Can I say note? Add a note. What page number is that in Jimpa?
137.
137. Okay, thank you. And what page is that in Hopkins' text?
213.
213. Thank you. So that's where we're going to start next time. And then someone who had, Rocio, you had a question.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It has to do with, it came to my mind, the concept of from its own side. So we're saying that when the bodhisattva is the object of anger, not the agent, but the object, on whatever level it is. My question is, why are these bodhisattvas so strong, or any bodhisattva so strong from their own side? And this thought came to my mind. Let's see that, I am angry to my mother and she's the object and she's very strong object of anger,
Yeah.
What if I was an abandoned child and I didn't know that that person that I'm getting upset was my mother,
Yeah.
So short summary, why are these, why are these bodhisattvas as objects, in object and agent and object?
Yeah, why are they a heavy object? Yeah.
From their own side.
Yeah, because they are kind to us in that their goal is encompassing all sentient beings. So we're included within sentient beings. Ordinary beings don't have the wish that what they're doing is going to benefit all beings or necessarily benefit us, right? But bodhisattvas do have that intention. And because of that, they are considered to be heavier objects of karma than our own parents, which are when you don't talk about holy beings, ordinary beings, the ordinary beings that you can create virtue with respect to or negativity with respect to, our parents are heavier than other objects of karma because they have given us this body. They've nurtured us, they taught us, and so forth. They've cared for us, they've protected us. It's said that karma that you create with your parents when you're young are heavy enough that they can ripen at the end of your life, this lifetime. Generally, karma that you create this lifetime, there's no guarantee it will ripen this lifetime, right? But very heavy karma, such as good or bad things you did with respect to your parents, that can ripen at the end of this lifetime. And say, for instance, karma that you create with bodhisattvas or Buddhas or our gurus, because they also are heavy in that same way. They're nurturing us on the path. That can ripen even quicker. That's why it's possible to achieve tantric realizations, even to achieve enlightenment in this lifetime. One of the main practices is guru devotion. So the karma, imagining that the Buddha, that your guru is the Buddha, making offerings. Let's say if you're practicing tantra, first you do the generation in front. You imagine your guru in the form of Haruka or Yamantaka or Tara or Avalokiteshvara or Vajrayogini, whatever. You make offerings and revere them, and you're practicing in action also in everyday life. And then you become then there's the self-identification as a deity. And you try to identify your own mind as the mind of your guru also. So even making offerings to the self-generation, you create that very heavy karma, not because of you, but because you're identifying with the omniscient mind and with the mind of your guru. Okay. So yeah, tough bones today. I have a feeling that we may be able to finish the first 5 bhumis before our August break. So let's hope on that, so that when we come back in, when it would be in September, we'll start the 6th bhumi. So we still have to finish the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th are a bit shorter. This 3rd one is again a little bit longer. So any last questions before we end? How are we doing? John, you okay? Yeah, what do you have?
So it's just a very quick comment to going back to that, we have these occasional grammatical explanations, and this one that we had early today was about, the connection between killing and anger. And I just wanted to throw this out there because you mentioned the root, to kill in Sanskrit is hun, and by some peculiarity of phonetics, when the hun occasionally becomes gnun, it goes to a g sound. So that's why you get pratigha as being associated with hun. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I think it's actually a bogus, what they call bogus etymology, because they aren't actually related, but they end up sounding the same.
Right. It's not an etymology, but it's the verse is quoted because of it's called anger. The implication is it's called anger because because it causes the destruction or something like that. Okay, so let's dedicate our merits with the dedication prayers. So remember, our motivation at the beginning, we tried to create some positive motivation. So even more so, even we created merit just listening from the side of the object being Dharma, we created some merit. But with the motivation of bodhicitta, we created an immense amount of merit. Due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that enlightened state, that very enlightened state. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen in me yet, may it arise and grow. And you want to move that down a little? And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase evermore. And then, so we'll do long life prayer. So no need to do a long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche because Lama Zopa Rinpoche has passed away. We're going to do his prayer for his quick return. But here, you teachers who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love, all illuminating spiritual friends, please live a long and stable life. And then the prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Do you have that, Mary Ellen? There we go. Okay. Peerless teacher, an assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. Victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all objects of refuge in the infinite realms, please bestow the virtue of goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. There's another. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and while striving for mother's living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, or you could put the ocean, you could say, nevertheless, through the undeceiving, infallible truth of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for we fortunate disciples, for us fortunate disciples. To dedicate our merits in that way. And I thank you. We'll have a discussion group for this class on Mondays, if you didn't know about it. Rocio, you may not know this. I think at, what is it, Eastern time? What is it, 2 o'clock Eastern time? You're welcome. There's a good group. They come. We chew some more bones then. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Read ahead.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George. Thank you.
Venerable. Thank you, Marianne.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye.